Hello everyone, today we're going to be continuing the Phenomenology of Internal Time Consciousness by Edmund Husserl. Let's just jump into it. This section is going to be primarily interested in the analysis of memory. So in the first two videos, we were mostly interested in retention. Retention is what Husserl calls the comet's tail of experience. You have the present moment and your experience of the present moment, and you retend this, and that's what we talked about in the first two videos. This one is more interested in recollection or memory, which is about things which are much farther away from the present moment than retention is. Retention is just the immediate past. Recollection is concerned with dredging up old experiences which are not connected to current experience the same way retention is. And so first we have this little comparison of the two. Retention is the comet's tail, and recollection is just antique comets. You bring up old recordings and you show those instead of, what's right behind the comet at the moment. Retention is connected to now, but has no now. This is because the retention is retending something which is continuing. It's retending a now. However, in recollections, when you dredge up a memory, you can go through the memory one moment at a time. The recollection has a now. And as such, it also has a retention, actually. Retention has no as-if modification, whereas recollection does. This is about your creation of a fake experience. You're imagining something as if it's happening instead of it actually happening. And then retention is not something that you control. This is passive, whereas recollection is active on the part of the one who recollects, on the one who remembers. Next, we have a bit on perception. This is a comparison between perception and memory. So in perception, you experience the present moment and you have your retentions. In memory, you experience a past moment and the retentions which go along with that. However, there is an interesting difference, which is that perception contains an ideal unchangeable limit, which is the current moment, whereas memory doesn't contain this limit. When you are in a memory, you can flip around, go forward, go backward. There's no ideal limit. There's nothing unchangeable. Whatever is in the past or the future is only relatively in the past or the future when you are flipping through a memory. You have the whole memory if you want it. We have a comparison between fantasy and recollection. Fantasy has objects which are entirely imaginary now, whereas recollection represents a past now, something which actually happened. They're both active on the part of the one who remembers or imagines, and then there are no parameters in fantasy, whereas in recollection, the parameters are pre-given by the original situation. A person may misremember, but they intend their memory to be a true depiction of the original situation, which is part of what makes it a recollection. Next, we have a reconstruction of memorial experience. So, say you have an initial event. You have event A, then you have event B. So what is memory like? Well, first we have event A prime followed by event B prime. Is this what memory is like? It's just you take the same events and you play them back? Well, not quite. Because when you remember the event, you remember the different moments of the event, but you also know where they'll go. So your memory of A prime and B prime also includes knowing the whole sequence before it happens. So when you were actually at moment A and then you went to moment B, you didn't know for certain how B would happen or if B would happen. However, when you remember them, you have that as part of your available experience. So you remember the whole event, and while you're playing through it, you still retain this experience of, or you still have this experience of knowing where the event is going to go. There is something else here which is interesting, which is that you can remember the duration of the experience, and you can remember the experience itself. So there is the memory of the succession of A and B, and then there's also the memory of A followed by B. So you can remember the succession of the two events or the two events themselves. And then on repeated memories, you just have the initial happening, then you have the memory of that happening, then you have the memory of that happening, and you can just continue that ad infinitum. Content and background. So there is another aspect to memory which is interesting. The first is that you have the content. This is the happenings or durations of the memory. Say I ate cereal yesterday. I have the memory of eating the Cinnamon Life cereal with milk before it gets soggy while it's still a little crunchy, and I have the duration of the events, and I have how fun it was to eat that. But I also have the context, which is past, present, or future, right? So when I am remembering myself eating the cereal yesterday, I know that this is in the past. This is past, right? But how do I know it's in the past? Well, there are two ways I can imagine this being the case. One is that I'm imagining all of the events that would lead up to the present that just kind of show me that the event I'm thinking about is in the past. However, this is goofy and not how my experience of memory works at all. When I intend something in the past, I intend it in a context. There is the context of before now or past. This is an empty intention of time. So when I think about myself eating the cereal, when I remember eating the cereal, what is happening here is we have the content and the duration and the happenings and all of that. And I have this kind of like as an isolated island. And this isolated island is put inside an empty intention which says the past or roughly yesterday or a couple days ago. Like it's just the past. This is an empty intention, which is something I talked about a little bit in the previous video. But yeah, so it's just the past, and this is the background of the experience considered as the kind of experience it was. Then we have memory versus expectation. Husserl is interested in distinguishing between my memory and what I expect to happen in the near future. Well, clearly there's a time-related difference. Memory and expectation are inverted, so one expects the future, one is about the past, so they both have an inverted relationship to the present moment. He asks if there's a content difference, like maybe memory has a bunch of details and expectation is wrong about a bunch of stuff, but that isn't something which is foundationally different. That's contingently different. Like you could imagine a person who has perfect prophetic vision that just matches up the content of their memory and their expectation perfectly. But then Husserl also has another thing, which is the fulfillment of a memory or an expectation is different. Memory is fulfilled by whether the remembered event took place or not. Expectation, however, is fulfilled by sensation. So when I expect something to happen, whether that expectation is fulfilled is based on whether my sensations deliver to me that expectation and whether they deliver that experience, whereas memory is fulfilled by whether the events already took place or not. Then one last segment about memory is having been perceived. Part of the essence of memory is having been perceived. Whatever we are thinking of as memorial, it is about something that we perceived. Now, Husserl wants to distinguish between two possible interpretations, and he wants to deny the first one. So the first one says, yesterday I experienced a stage with lights. So the question is, what did you perceive? Well, Husserl wants to say that you perceived the stage. You didn't perceive the experience. The object of the experience is what you perceived, right? So you perceived the stage with lights. Your experience was of the stage with lights. Now, what you didn't do was perceive an experience. You perceived the stage. You did not perceive an experience. You had an experience, and that was how you perceived the stage, but you did not perceive the experience. Now, when you represent this perception, when you represent the stage to yourself, you can objectify, and you are objectifying the experience as well as the object of the experience. So when you remember experiencing or perceiving the stage, you were objectifying that experience, and now you were perceiving the experience of the stage, the experience of seeing the stage. But originally, in the moment, you were only perceiving the stage. You were not perceiving your experience of the stage. Yeah. That'll be all for today. Hope you learned something. Hope it was kind of interesting. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.